Hey Brian,
All right, I'm ready to go. How are you doing today?
I'm always the same, Brian. I haven't changed in 25 years.
Is the same great? How would you say it is?
Well, basically, there's no sense of somebody being here.
Hmm.
I disappeared 25 years ago, and Vishrant never came back.
Mm,
So my mind doesn't talk to itself, so it's just peace, 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 and bliss.
beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Thank you for being willing to set up the exchange for us to talk. Um, I have found that things have started happening in my life pretty beautifully to take me to whatever the next step is in my understanding and realization. And on Sunday morning, I was on Instagram and one of your reels popped up. And the only way I can describe it is immediately I was like, yes, this is truth. And I found that I've become really sensitive to looking for truth and looking for correctness, and truth is the right word for it. And I started watching all of your content and just kept having the same thought of like, I need to manifest a way to talk to him and see if I can get some counsel or help or guidance on putting pieces of the puzzle together. And I specifically resonated with your story a lot because I'm in a life situation where I've found a hard time finding guidance and mentorship, and everybody around me, I just don't, what's the right way to say it? Everybody around me is so stuck in trying to like earn and gain and earn and gain. And I've already done that and found it really miserable. But because that's where everybody around me is at, I've had a hard time just like figuring out what's next and what to do. So I'd love if I could maybe just give you some context on where I'm at, and then I have a few specific questions, but I'm open to just any thoughts that you have that come up, just sharing them as they come up, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do with you.
Perfect.
You, I believe you're a salesman, or you have been a salesman.
Yeah, I started my first company when I was 20 years old. I was actually a Mormon missionary for 2 years in Eastern Canada, knocking on doors,
Right.
and it did
That's
really well.
brave. That's pretty brave stuff.
It was. It honestly, it was less brave and more just fear of getting socially exiled than anything. So
All
it was
right.
more running away from not wanting to lose my tribe than it was acting out of courage.
I understand. You're driven by fear. Yep. Because you're involved in a kind of a cult.
Yeah, not anymore, but growing up for sure. And it was very scary, the idea of losing the cult, losing the tribe.
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
That's a very
So,
old fear. That's a primal fear.
big time. Yeah,
Mm.
big time. And so I did that, came home from that when I was 20 and started my first company. It was a marketing agency and found success very, very quickly. Um, Started making six figures at age 20 and then got married at 20 years old, divorced at 23, with her cheating on me with her boss, which was a whole crazy experience. But the success train never really slowed down for me. And by the time I'm 27 now, by the time I was 25, I was making six figures a month in distributions from everything I had going on. And my major low point was, it was almost a year ago exactly now, where I was sitting in a second house that I had bought with three cars and all the watches and a new perfect girlfriend. And I had a six pack, and I had just gotten my monthly distribution and it was like 148,000. And my girlfriend, who's now my wife at the time, was like, "Why do you look so sad?" And I actually just started bawling because everything felt purposeless in that moment. And it was
Yeah.
like everything that I was expecting to happen on the other side of doing and having all the things didn't. And it was really soul crushing. And so
Yeah.
it's really soul crushing. That led to me starting to self medicate with alcohol and marijuana. And I just started kind of day walking for a few months. And I could do that for a while because I had gotten so good at business that I really didn't need to be that attentive in order to keep making money. And I just got in this bad cycle of like, let me take enough uppers to like do the 2 hours of work that I need to do for the day, and then let me start taking as many downers as I can to stop feeling depressed, and just repeating that cycle. Um, and then about 9 months ago, I got introduced to who's now a really close family friend who led me through a psilocybin ceremony and had one of the most profound experiences of my life, and realized how encapsulated in fear and anxiety I was at the time, and how much I was running away from, and how it all centered back to not feeling worthy and not feeling good enough, and trying to prove my way into love and trying to prove my way into being worthy of being loved. And that moment has taken me down a path for the last 9 months of a lot of study and a lot of trying to understand and a lot of letting go and a lot of trying to piece things back together. And
Can I
so,
ask, can I ask you a question?
yeah,
When you did the psilocybin, did you find yourself as the universe at any stage?
yes, I was watching myself enshrouded in darkness, but I wasn't with my body when I was watching myself.
Okay, there's one step further than that. It's when you realize you are the darkness as a total. That's not a bad step though. That's pretty high up there. I called it walking around the abyss. You're looking at the abyss, the emptiness, the darkness. Then suddenly you find you are the abyss, which is a step further. But you're on the right track. You're actually seeing the truth. And once you see the truth of what we truly are, normal life becomes a little bit hard because it seems pointless. There doesn't seem to be a meaning in it. And this is what I hear you describing to me. Your story to me so far has very much reflected my own story, because I've had the similar experiences. Like you, I was super successful at a very young age, and I retired when I was 28. And man, the only people I could hang out with were drug dealers who could keep up with my finances, or old men, you know?
A hundred
Um,
percent. Because old men are smart enough to maintain a conversation, and young people are
yeah,
too asleep.
yeah.
And so it's a weird place to be in.
And like you, I got married at 21. I was divorced at 22 because my wife went off and slept with a musician one night. So your story is resonating a bit with me. You know, there's a bit of a connection there just in the story. You're obviously a salesman because you have the gift of the gab. You know how to talk. You probably know how to present a closing argument, which you may have even been taught by the church.
For sure. I mean,
Thank
the
you.
ultimate close was a baptism for me. So,
Mm. And so the step forward is to work out how to get back to that space where you know yourself as everything, or at least you know yourself as the darkness. Because a lot of people are frightened of the darkness, but the truth is what we are is the totality of the universe. And when you look at it, it's darkness or emptiness. But when you're experiencing yourself as it, you're not looking at it, you are every point in the universe. And so as I'm talking to you right now, I'm aware of you, but I'm also aware of every point in the universe being myself right now, not from a concept, but from my direct experience in this moment. This is a continual satori that's been going now for 25 years. And this is where you're headed if you want. It's absolute freedom. I'm not attached to anything. I can't be. That's not possible. I'm absolutely free.
Mm-hmm.
This is what spirituality is really about, finding this space as self continuously. It's commonly called enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
You got a leg up through psilocybin. You got a glimpse. But the glimpse is actually an invitation to do the work. It's an invitation to come home.
Mm-hmm.
The collection of knowledge is the booby prize because it doesn't help. I know you've been collecting knowledge, but it doesn't actually help. Because what we're looking for is beyond the mind, not within the mind. The mind can support what is found, but it can't actually create it. And so the emptiness is already there. The pure awareness that is aware of your mind is already there. It's just that it's not aware of itself. It's aware of your mind and through your senses the world. In my mind, there's awareness aware of the mind also, but there's also awareness aware of itself, and it's continuously aware of itself, and that's enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that an individual can become enlightened. As a matter of fact, when enlightenment occurs, the I disappears.
Mm-hmm.
There's a noticeable absence of it, which is really quite a relief, because without an I, you don't have any problems, really.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely headed in the right direction. The next steps are difficult because what the mind has to learn to do without psilocybin is actually surrender unconditionally to that space. And that's the most difficult thing in the world to learn, because we're not programmed for surrender. We're programmed for survival. Our whole mind, our whole body is a survival mechanism. Yet someone who's awake or enlightened has basically defeated the survival mechanism because it is surrendered unconditionally. And that's a death. It's a death of the thing that's in the way, the problem. It's called I. The I is the problem. And so you're on the right track completely. Completely. It's just difficult. It's difficult because you're collecting knowledge, which I did for years, thinking that somehow that would get me somewhere, but it doesn't, because that knowledge is totally available to you when you wake up through the Akashic records. It's all there if I want to access it. I don't have an interest in it, fortunately, because my mind likes to do nothing.
Yeah. You know what's funny about you saying that is I've had this interesting feedback loop where I go to sit down and start reading, and are you familiar with Dr. David Hawkins?
Yes.
I've really loved his work. It's helped me understand a lot of things, especially about the escalation of consciousness, and especially at the beginning of my journey. But I keep having this feedback loop where I'll go read a book and then I'm like, okay, I know all these things now, but it doesn't change the here and now. Well, let me go try and learn something else to see if that will change the here and now, yet it doesn't change the here and now.
That's right. Absolutely.
And it just
Yeah, absolutely. This might blow you away, but the definition of enlightenment is knowing yourself as everything continuously, but not from an I perspective. Now that is God. To know yourself as every particle in the universe, you're knowing yourself as God, because that definition of God is every particle in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
That's blasphemy, and a couple of 100 years ago it would have got burnt by the Christian church for saying that. While people danced around celebrating, but but that's the experience. And the reason that's not that common in the West is because of Christianity. Anyone who started to find themselves, as you started to find yourselves and started to talk about it, would probably get persecuted, possibly executed. And so in the West, for the last 2,000 years, Christianity has kept awakening, if you like, out of the question.
Mm-hmm. Because
So
I can't control an awakened person.
yeah, so So we had to look towards, I had to look towards the east, India actually, to look for where people actually talked about the experiences I was having.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just unknown in the West. Psychology doesn't recognize it. Mind you, psychology doesn't even recognize energy. So, I see psychology as in the dark ages still.
Yeah.
Your psilocybin has the potential to show you a great deal, and I think it has with you.
A tremendous amount. And I've had remarkable experiences. I've done maybe 6 or 7 journeys. I call them a journey because it feels like I'm going on a journey since then. And I've left my body and sat with Jesus, and I've taken off my mask and seen auras and third eyes and seen vibrational fields, and I've experienced these otherworldly things. And then I come out of it and I'm left with the same question, which is, but how does that become every moment, not just that moment on that
So,
experience?
so that's still outside. You remember that the sitting with Jesus, the doing whatever you did, is still outside. It's still a projection outside. And enlightenment is not a projection outside. It has nothing to do with the mind. It has everything to do with consciousness becoming conscious of itself, or awareness become aware of itself. So all those experiences that you experience on psilocybin are still looking outside rather than truly inside.
Hmm.
And that's the trap. That's the trap of psilocybin. I know about psilocybin because I lived in Byron Bay, which is on the east coast of Australia, for a couple of years, and the stuff grows in the in cow pads in the fields. And so I used to have a Sunday session, well, long time ago now, but it's still a trap because it is not about what is aware. It's still about an experience. The experience of sitting with Jesus, for instance, say. It's still about an experience. What's aware of that experience? Because that's when that's aware of the experience becomes aware of itself, that's enlightenment or satori.
Mm-hmm. I I get glimpses of that also when I meditate intentionally. And there's times when I'm meditating where I feel like I could just sit there forever. And
Mm.
I basically do sit there until my timer on my phone goes off because I have something to attend to. But I get moments where I actually yearn for time to stop, and I feel a sense of like hope that the timer just won't go off so that I can just stay sitting there.
Yeah. You also have, I know the dog's going off, I can hear it.
Oh, good. She's a attentive galley.
Yeah, that's okay. I have 3 dogs. I love dogs, man.
Mm-hmm.
You also have a very strong mind, and that can be a blessing, but it can also be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you take psilocybin, the drug knocks your mind out to some degree. It's a bit like a death drug, like ayahuasca. And you get to
Mm-hmm.
see all sorts of stuff, but it's because the mind has been forced out of its defense systems. Now, to go further without drugs or medicine, whatever you want to call it, you actually need to learn unconditional surrender. So you surrender all those defense systems and you can find the same spaces. The only thing that stopped you from experiencing those things before was defense systems, things that you developed when you were a baby all the way through. And so I realized this because I'd taken ecstasy and I felt this amazing love for everything and everyone. And I tried to work out, well, how did that happen?
Uh-huh.
And it was really simple. All my defense systems were taken down by the drug temporarily.
Yeah.
It was a total knockout of my defense systems. And so I worked out that if I take all my defense systems down, I can start to experience that again. Now, I did. And I experience love all the time, pretty much. But because I have no defense systems and I walk through the world vulnerably, people don't know it. I have just nothing. Everything blows through me. absolutely nothing. But I consciously did that because, like you, I had a strong mind, and I used my mind to take down every defense system I had inside myself so I could start finding these beautiful spaces again without drugs, without ecstasy, without psilocybin.
I think where I find myself getting stuck often is the question of like, but what do I do with all of my affairs? What do I do with my family, with my house, with money, with my wife? Like, do I need to remain consciously involved in all of my affairs?
Oh, you probably do. Otherwise, it'll get, you're probably managing it really well, and without you, it'd probably fall apart. And so you probably do. I still run a Buddhist society here in Perth, West Australia, but I run it from a different space. My acumen is not as good as it was when I was a businessman. Like you, I came to that point where I realized this is pointless. I was super wealthy, living in a penthouse in a very, very rich area, driving a Rolls Royce, had all the boats, had everything, the women, you name it, same as your story. And I realized, I've been bullshitted. I've been conned into believing this is what it is. And I was wrong. And so I actually got sick of myself as a businessman and went in and handed my companies. I wasn't married at this stage. I didn't have kids. Handed my companies to my staff because they'd been loyal to me for 10 years. Said, you guys keep the companies. I don't want any part of it. I even gave them 14 offices full of furniture. And I took my shoes off, and I walked around Australia for 4 years looking for my heart because as a businessman, I'd lost it.
Uh-huh.
And I recognized I'd lost it.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate to that a lot. It's really hard for me to engage with all the worldly stuff because I just see all of the fretting and pointlessness and aimlessness and lack of intention. And like, I'll start consulting. Somebody will hire me to consult their business, and I'll tell them the things they need to hear to grow their business. But in my mind's eye, I'm like, wow, you're this fragile little boy who's running this thing to try and feel fulfilled. And all of you are encapsulated with all these bullshit, meaningless metrics. And I just look at this matrix of meaninglessness.
Yep.
And then I finish the call and I'm just like, what's the point of that? That was completely pointless, but they think it's meaningful. And I find myself looking at the majority of the things around me just from this lens of it's all pointless, futile, nothingness.
Yep. What I did is I found that I loved people, and in loving people, I could actually help them. I still help people with their businesses, set their business up, run their businesses, because that was my acumen as well. I know that it's pointless. So what? I love these people. I want to help them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way of the heart. I couldn't see any other way to live here except through love, because it's the only thing here that has value. Nothing else has value.
Yeah. If it's interesting, I've explored this thought track with myself multiple times of like, if my family that I love and care for and who needs me for their growth disappeared, and if my wife, who I love with my whole heart, disappeared, the only answer that I could see being left is like, I'm just going to go sit until my spirits leaves. Like, and it's not like a dark thought at all, but it's like, well, if I'm not going to love these people that I love, I'm not going to go engage pointlessly with the world either. And it's a weird place to sit with that thought.
See, I never left my family. Once I came back from the walk around Australia, I got together with a woman and we had a couple of kids, and I stayed with her for 20 years. And awakening occurred while I was with her. So I didn't abandon her because I found myself as truth either, because as a man, I honored my commitments.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the reasons that awakening actually occurred for me was I had a very mature mind because I had been involved in taking care of people my whole life as a businessman. and my mind was quite mature, and because it was mature, it supported what was found, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And this is a lot of what I have to teach nowadays to people, because a lot of people who come here looking for spiritual advice, they're just so immature. They just haven't been taught how to be adults, you know. And so I find that I'm teaching adults how to be men and women, you know, because it is a mature mind that will support what's found. And so there's no need to abandon the wife or even think about it, because you can love them and serve them as well. That's the way of the heart, is the way of service. You take care of things. You take care of people. You take care of your dogs. You know, you take care of your wife. If you've got children, you take care of them. This is the way of the heart. And this is the beauty way. And maybe you got a bit of this when you're in the church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And maybe when you're in the church also, you had some devotion to Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that devotion is the way of the heart also, that devotion. I had that too, because I was a Catholic schoolboy and I aborted. I loved Jesus, you know, until I saw through the church, which I did. The hypocrites. Anyway, I got into the devotional side of it when I was very young, but I lost all of that when I became a businessman, because I became a warmonger. You know, to me, business was war.
Mm-hmm.
I read The Art of War something like 20 times before I went into business by Sun Tzu.
Yeah. The Art of War, Robert Greene, Laws of Human Nature. I
Yeah.
was very deep on like, I will understand how to control and manipulate human beings for my own
Yes.
gain.
Yes. Yeah, you got it. Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when it all seemed pointless, what to do?
Mm-hmm.
What to do? Like you, I actually ended up speaking to someone who was into higher consciousness, who was into spirituality, and it just changed my whole direction of life. Because I could see that there was another way to live here. I didn't have to continue to be a hard-nosed businessman. I could actually start to find hard and serve hard. And while I was serving hard, it was like I was manageably happy.
Mm-hmm.
I call it manageable happiness because nowadays I have true happiness, which is profound contentment for no reason. I'm always content for no reason. But before awakening, I went back to school and trained as a naturopath and psychotherapist so I could help people. And when I helped people, I felt so good inside myself because it was my heart that was involved. It was my love affair with humanity. And that's what changed my whole life, because when you remove all the obstacles that are in the way of you experiencing heart or love, you're actually preparing your mind for enlightenment.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that, but that's what happened.
I started a coaching community on the back of this year because I didn't want to do traditional business anymore, and I was kind of resolute that I was just going to only make money by serving people, and that was my new rule: is that money would only come on the back of service.
Yep.
And it is so deeply intrinsically rewarding for me to watch men sit with themselves for the first time in their entire
Yep.
life, and to
Yep.
feel
Yep.
for the first time in their entire life.
You're on the right track. This is it. You're definitely going down the path of the heart, man. Wonderful. Yay.
Do you have any counsel for me on, if I guess I don't know if I had to formulate this in the right question, other than I still find myself at times reaching for productivity and reaching for like, but what's the right thing to do? And like, I'll give you an example. Yesterday on Sunday afternoon, I had spent like all morning just being happy, watching your content, and then calling friends and texting people I love and going on walks. And then at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I had a tinge of like, you need to go be productive, you need to go produce, you need to go do. And I immediately recognized that felt off, yet it still felt like a pull of like, you need to go do, you need to go do. And that's a dance I still feel myself doing at times. The dance between like, I need to go accomplish, I need to go do versus just, no, I just like.
It's a default pattern that you developed in childhood. And it's also a default pattern that keeps you away from any wounding you might have. Duoholism is a great addiction because it pays a reward. You get things done. You get rewarded for getting things done. But it can also be used to avoid any stuff that's inside of you, any pain body that's inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
You move to do it, you feel uncomfortable. You move to duoholism, you don't feel uncomfortable anymore.
Yeah,
it's a trap. It's a trap, man. Sitting silently, doing nothing, shows you everything about you and allows everything to come up. Moving to doing is a pattern you developed. Of course, I was a doaholic as well for the same reasons. So I know this pattern really well.
It's a very covert form of avoidism.
It is. It's like, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not a drug addict. I just like to get things done. Bullshit. You're escaping through duaholism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in those moments like yesterday in the go to do, that really would only be there if there was a constricting thing coming up for me to look at, because that's when it flares. Is like if
Absolutely.
there's
Absolutely.
something I don't fully want to look at, it's like, well, let me
Yeah,
go.
yeah. Or feel something that's coming that you don't want to feel.
Yeah.
You're on the money, mate. Like you, I went and got expert advice because I had the money to. I traveled the world following the experts, basically. And they showed me a great deal about myself. And that was wonderful because there's two ways to see yourself. One is developing a silent witness that watches the mind all the time. And the other is getting friends and people who don't like you to tell you what they can see about you.
Yeah.
Even if only 10% of it's correct, you're interested in the 10%. The 90% that might be wrong, you don't care about. It's the 10%, because until we can see our minds completely, we can't actually let it all go.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. And so the trick is an undoing process. It's undoing all the defense systems that you developed over a lifetime to protect you from this, that, and the other, but also undoing any program that causes contraction in you and takes you into resistance to life. Because resistance to life is suffering.
Mm-hmm. And those programs are all illusion anyway. They're not truth.
They are, but they're there and they need to be undone. And every one of those programs will have a belief system attached to it that keeps you prisoner. All belief systems are prisons.
Mm. Because inherently, if it's something that's believed, it's not just knowingness of truth.
That's true too, but if you believe something and it's challenged and the expectation on it's not met, you're likely to go into contraction. The moment you go into contraction, you are creating suffering for you because you're in resistance to life.
It makes you vulnerable to perceiving attack.
Well, perceiving attack's okay. You're doing this to yourself though.
Mm-hmm.
You have an expectation that things should be a certain way. They don't go that way. You go into resistance. You hurt yourself because you're the one supplying the resistance.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. If you took enough psilocybin, you'd see all this by yourself, okay?
Yeah. You create the belief and then you also create the punishment and the harm.
Well, look at the church you were involved in. It was full of belief systems to basically control you. But when those belief systems got challenged and you still believed them, you'd go into resistance to protect them. You'd go into suffering yourself to protect them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't do that. I removed all the belief systems that were in the way, so I didn't contract against the world, including the one where I shouldn't be abandoned, shouldn't be rejected, shouldn't be let down, whatever, lied to, thieved from, you name it. Because I'm not interested in living in the world creating suffering for myself by contracting constantly. I accept that the world is the way it is.
Uh-huh.
And this is the key to happiness, acceptance of life as it is.
Yeah. And then having peace in self to be able to engage with the world as it is, rather than feeling the need to manipulate or control.
We can't have peace while you're trying to manipulate and control.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. You can only have peace when your mind is relaxed. And while it's trying to control everything, you can't have peace.
Uh-huh.
It's a relaxed mind that creates beauty, not an uptight mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've experienced that.
Yep.
Reason relationships are so beautiful because a woman's does a great job at relaxing the mind.
Yeah. But also women are there to be worshipped, basically. When we actually really take care of a woman, when we really worship them, we're doing ourselves such a favor because love arises. And love is the most beautiful thing we can experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I propose a concept that maybe you could help me make sense of that I've been getting tripped up on?
Yeah, go ahead.
In David Hawkins' book Power versus Force, he talks about the scale of consciousness on 1 to 1,000 representing enlightenment. And between acceptance and love, within the 400s of his scale, he talks about reason. And I've come to understand reason as being able to separate emotional illusion and ego attachment with truth. But I've also found myself feeling like, because reason comes before love, that there's a certain amount of knowledge and learning that I have to gain in order to fully move through that into love, if that makes any sense.
I jumped over the whole lot by learning unconditional surrender.
Hmm.
You see, the way that approach is an approach through the mind.
Hmm.
There is another approach, and the approach that I took was unconditional surrender. I just surrendered to God. I'll use the word God because truth is God.
Uh-huh.
I just surrendered and I gave everything to God. All my beliefs, all my problems, all my joy. I gave everything to God. I surrendered unconditionally. And in that unconditional surrender, I found the beauty of God as self.
Hmm.
And so that was a jump. You see, higher consciousness is not enlightenment. Higher consciousness is still within the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Enlightenment is when awareness is aware of itself and stays aware of itself. So people can have glimpses of that, particularly on psilocybin. But for that to be continuous, the mind has to support it. And the only type of mind that will support continual enlightenment is a surrendered mind. A mind that is in acceptance of what is.
Yeah. Because high consciousness doesn't it doesn't, correlation is not causation, or just because consciousness is high that enlightenment is also equal to.
I came into this world with higher consciousness. That's why I was so successful at such a young age, and I would suspect that that's your case too.
Yeah, I was questioning things by the time I had the worst GPA imaginable, because by the time I was 8, I could see that the whole school system was pointless. And so I just disengaged entirely. And it also made living with my family really hard as a child, because I could see all of the falsities in my parents' parenting. So I didn't listen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
challenged everything at a young age.
You and I are similar once again. At 3 years of age, I was actually banned from all my parents' parties because I would tell their friends what I saw in them. And I was an uncontrollable child. I was beaten just about every day at school because I grew up in a different era than you when they were allowed to beat kids. And I was beaten every day at school because I was uncontrollable. I would not comply.
Yeah. My dad and I had a really tension-filled relationship when I was young because he had anger issues, and I would clearly call out how destructive his anger issues were to our family.
That always makes people calm down. That does.
Yeah. And my mom is, I say this completely objectively, a pure heart-centered led woman, to the degree, Vishrant, that with this same shaman who helped me with this, it's sometime we'll have to sit so I can tell you the story of my whole family doing a psilocybin journey together, which was a wild experience. But my mom took ecstasy within the context of the journey, and nothing happened. Nothing. She felt no change. And the shaman sat there and she said, I've done this 1,000 times and this has never happened. You took enough ecstasy for there to be something. The only answer is that you just feel the exact same way you always feel. And my mom was like, yeah, I feel the exact same way I always feel, because she's just a beautiful soul. But because my dad had anger issues and I could recognize the beauty of my mother as a young child, any disturbance that he caused, I would make it very known that he was causing harm and hurt and that he was childish. Yes. So there was a lot of tension from that.
You know, your mother's experience is the same experience I have all the time. I'm always experiencing, it's like on ecstasy. First of all, I'm blissed out. Secondly, I love everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And your dad's anger, well, that taught you a great deal about your life.
A lot.
Yeah. It taught you the difference between maturity and immaturity.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah. This is beautiful. This is a huge reassurance for me, because I've felt very intrinsically called to just keep letting go and keep surrendering. But I haven't really had a lot of reassurance that that is the right path and the right way forward.
If you tune in right now into your own mind, you'll find your mind is calming down.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can feel you. I'm a sensitive, and I can feel you, and I'm actually already in your head, and my mind is totally calm, totally quiet, no noise, and I can feel the transmission is occurring with you.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's called a sitai, and it happens to enlightened people. They have this ability to actually be in other places at once. Because I experience myself as awareness all the time, I can be anywhere in the universe at any time. Because awareness is everywhere. And right now I'm with you.
Yeah, I can feel you.
Yeah, I know. I know you can, because I can feel you feeling me. Now, this is a mystery to me how this works, but it does. This is why people come to see me on the internet when I hold what's called satsang, which basically means association with truth. It's a Sanskrit word that means association with truth. And people come to see me because they can feel the transmission, which I first felt while sitting in front of my spiritual teacher, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. He blew my mind. And I went, what the hell is this? You know, I've never experienced this before. Yeah.
Can I ask you one more question? Something I've been grappling.
Go ahead.
Because money was such a big part of my life in my 20s, I'm curious how to think about money moving forward, and not because I feel pretty far away from the fact that nothing that I could ever buy would change anything about my internal world. I have a pretty deep understanding and knowingness of that. And my wife and I want to have as many kids as the universe will give us, and I want to live a big, beautiful, free life with them. And money's required to some degree to do those things.
Yep.
How do I think about making money and how that fits in and putting energy into that? And to be super transparent, like, if I could manifest anything, I would work for 2 hours a day and make however much money I ever need for whatever I need at the time. And then I would just go be in life.
Yeah.
But it's been an interesting thing for me to think about how to think about money within this whole context.
Well, I've always seen, ever since I was a kid, I've always seen money as a tool. Like it's never been actually a goal. Success was a goal for me, but not money. Money was a tool to build with. Basically, it's just a tool, like something in a toolbox.
Yeah.
So once I came back from the walk around Australia and trained as a naturopath and psychotherapist, and then had kids with this woman who I married, I only worked as much as I needed to work, and I worked from home so I could be with my kids and my wife. I wasn't accumulating at that stage. I dropped that, but I was earning enough money to live nicely. Yeah, and that I loved that. But what happened was during that period, awakening occurred, and all of a sudden something different happened. First of all, people who were my clients would come, and in the beginning they'd come and talk to me, and I'd just sit there in silence because I was gone. And so they wouldn't come back, So I lost my client base over about 2 months. But what happened was people started wanting to come, like you've come today, for this. And now this is quite big, it's worldwide. And so this is my love affair with humanity, is to teach the truth, to basically talk the truth. This is my love affair. My love affair with you is to tell you the truth. And the truth is a rare commodity in the world, unfortunately. The world is made up of bullshit. We've all been programmed badly. You were programmed for success, so was I. But the problem with that is ambition is, we admire ambition. Ambition is not admirable. You're just talking about someone who's more discontent than everyone else.
The most ambitious people are usually the most fucked up people, in my experience.
Oh, you're calling me fucked up, mate. True. It's true. I would agree. I was super successful because I was a war machine. And it wasn't until I found heart that I believe I truly began to live.
Is there a spiritual aspect and a consciousness aspect to making money in almost a ridiculously easy way? And the reason I ask is not because I'm looking for that, but as I've stripped away the ego of needing to make money in a vanity impressive way and running a big business and what all that means, and I've isolated it down to just money without all the other narratives and attachments, I started day trading my capital. And because of the place of neutrality and lack of attachment that I have to it, it's been remarkably easy and almost, and I don't even know why I'm asking this other than I guess for confirmation, because it's almost scary in a way where like it's so easy to make money. There's almost a part of me that's like, am I tricking myself with this?
No, you're on the right track. I got into the same thing, but way before awakening. I gave it up because I saw that it was activating greed in me. Because it's gambling, like in a lot of, even though it could be a sure thing, there's a gamble in it. It's gambling. And so I gave it away because I got sick of the gambler in me. I got sick of that particular one part of myself. But if it's working for you and it's not stressing you, I cannot see a problem with it. If it's working for you, you obviously have a switched on mind, so you're making good decisions. Make it so. Make it so. I won't touch gambling because I was bad news at school. I was in charge of the illegal gambling at school, and I went on to an Apex club, which is a men's club. This is where I learned how to be a man when I was very, very young, and they had a gambling night, and I won all their money one night, and I lost all my friends that night.
Yeah. I can't touch it because I have too much of a I can't lose part of me.
It's like looking at you is like looking in a mirror of my younger self, mate.
Like if I lost, I would find some way to make it not true, no matter what the hell it was. Like there's no way I would go back to my hotel with the loser label. That would not exist.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
The direction is to find that you love and serve that. Serve that. Find that brings you love and serve that. That's the future. And you're then giving yourself a purpose, because as far as I can see, there is no purpose, there is no meaning to life. But you can give yourself one. And my purpose became taking care of people, including my wife and my kids, but also all my client base. Everybody that came to see me, I saw them in my care. And this was beautiful for me because I started to feel love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful feeling to, I don't know if responsibility is the right word, but it's a beautiful feeling to actively care for people, because one of the darker parts of expanded consciousness is without heart, it's nihilistic. And because everything, you can see through all the bullshit of everything, without heart, it's the only answer without heart is like, well, I'm either going to kill myself or go out dying.
That's it. Yep. Yep. You and I have found the same spaces, mate.
Mm-hmm.
Heart is the way. And it's not taught in school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't learn any of this stuff in school. I learned how to be successful in school because I got sent to a private college, and it was all about winning at any cost, which is ugly when you look at it. It's against heart.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Thank you deeply for taking time to talk to me.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on and asking the questions you've asked.
Yeah.
Can I say this to you? I love you to bits.
I love you. I have an intuitive sense that this is the start of us having a relationship in one way or another. I don't know what that'll look like.
You can always come to my meetings. I hold 7 of them a week.
I'll be there.
Yeah, well, you talk to Tosh because you've already met Tosh. He manages all of that. I sit in a couch, drink cups of coffee, and and talk to people, mate.
This is beautiful. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again sometime.
Thank you for that, saying.